כנס כיסופים השני, סופרים, משוררים, או חברים, אורחים, אוהבי ספרות, ירושלמים, מה שתרצו. התחלנו את המפגש הזה, שעוסק בגלות השפה, עם שירים של אבות ישורון בקולו. אבות ישורון היה בשבילי סוג של כניסה אל הנושא, אפילו אם אפשר לומר. ואם אני רוצה לומר, אני ארחיב את זה, אבות ישורון מהכיוון העברי ופול צלן מהכיוון שפה הגרמנית, אבל נאמר את זה גם מהכיוון האירופאי. כניסה אל הנושא הזה של שפה וגלות, של סופר ומשורר, שנע בין השפות ובוחר או לא בוחר, או לא יכול לבחור, והולך עם השפה ויוצר בתוכה, והיצירה שלו היא לא רק התוכן, אלא היא גם הצורה, וגם הקול השבור שנשמע מתוכה, ואני חושבת שזה בלתי אפשרי שלא להתרגש ולשמוע את אבות ישורון מושך את הכינור כפי שהוא מושך. במקום אחר הוא אומר, איך אקום בבוקר עם עיר אחת בלב ועם עיר אחת בעיניים? איך אעבור גמילה מהחלוקה הזאת? נדמה לי שהיה משהו בשיחה הקודמת שמעלת גם עדבית בודדים כזה בין השורות האלה לבין הדיאלוג. אני פתחתי עם אבות ישורון כמחווה, כי יש לי הרגשה שבתוך השיחה שלנו, בתוך הכנס, אנחנו לא רק מדברים בינינו לבין עצמנו עם ההווה.
I have met him here in Jerusalem, a wonderful person, you know, a silent person, an introvert, not speaking a word, just listening. I spoke to him, I'm not a great speaker, and he was so silent that his silence is still with me here. It's very strange. We spoke, of course, German, but then we spoke a bit of Hebrew because he knew Hebrew. We spoke a bit of Yiddish because he knew Yiddish. So it was, he brought me back so many wonderful memories from my town, from the boulevard of Czernowitz. Another writer that I used to meet also from my town, Czernowitz, was Manger, Itzik Manger. He was from Czernowitz, and I used to meet him not far from here. There is a coffee. He used to meet in Antara. Drunken permanently drunk, day and night. But his drunkenness was a kind of a holiness. He was a holy man, drunken in Jerusalem. He was drunken in London, he was drunken in China, everywhere. But here it was a kind of a bit of a holiness, you know. So I'm always surrounded with people. I was and still surrounded with people who came from Bukovina, a wonderful region. A region that Paul Celan called it the region of books. And by saying books, it means that there was quite a large intelligentsia. 2 large gymnasiums where Greek and Latin has been taught. A large university, a large theater, an opera house. It was a town full of culture. It's a pity. I left my town when I was 8.5 years old. And still it is with me, my parents, my grandparents. my uncles, most of them perished in the Ukraine. So again, it's Norman, it's wonderful to have you here. And just tell me a bit, to the audience, how it is to be a Romanian writer in the United States. What does it mean? How do you write in the mornings and the evenings, Romanian, in this big city called New York?
Let's try. Does it work? You mentioned Paul Celan here, who is for all of us a great name, a great poet. Paul Celan lived in Paris and wrote in German. I don't see a great difference between us from this point of view. I live in New York and write in Romanian. German was his language, Romanian is my language. So, and it's not only my situation, his situation, especially today when exile became a national No more. Find another one. So, it's better, yeah? So it's not such a bizarre, such an exotical situation more, especially in the United States, where you have writers who write in Chinese and in Indian and in Spanish and in all the languages. As you know, Celan wouldn't have settled in Germany for obvious reasons. He went to Paris, which was his kind of dreamy city, and it was for all of us so. But he didn't settle also in Zurich or in another city where he could have speak and write in German. So we get used to this estrangement and to this uprootedness, even if we don't like it. He couldn't remain in Bukovina, which became part of the Soviet Union. He couldn't stay in Manea because it was a new social political system that would have welcomed him. So, and I left Romania very late for the same reason, but I was more retarded than he was because I stayed too long. And I stayed because of the language. I considered, and I said several times that the country was for me, first of all, the language. I fell in love with the language after I came back from our common concentration camp, and it stayed with me. It's certainly a disease literature, and probably opposite to many other diseases, it's not curable. So that's the short story. We can do it for a longer time and to go all the complication and convulsions of such a status, such a situation. How I write in Romanian in New York, as I wrote in Romanian in Bucharest, or even in Bukovina. Of course, the environment is linguistically and not only linguistically different, heavily different. I left Romania at 50, and this is not an age when you still can change the language, especially for writing. So it is a contradiction and a conflict between the inner language which is a language for writing, and the social language, which is a language for communication, which is now for me English. But I like contradictions. I like more, in fact, contradictions than coherence, and I got used to it.
Norman, thank you. It's always good to listen to your voice. I do not know, there's something in your voice convincing.
I am very sad that you are not a woman. I like it more, but it's okay.
Just to say, you know, as you know, I came to Israel when I was about 13.5 years old, with no parents and no education. And I came to Israel, and it was for me something of a revelation. It was not only new, it was different. And it took me for a year, you know, to overcome all the obstacles of the language. And there were a lot of obstacles in the language. And I felt that a kind of a strange feeling that I am here and I am not here. What gives me very much, you know, the strength to continue in a language that was not mine was actually the people who came with me. I mean refugees who came with me to Israel. I was surrounded with them. And for them, I was their, you know, if I may say so, their mouth. They could not, you know, they could not more absorb the language. They could not more get it. And I became for them the mouth, you know. And they marveled me all the time, you know, that I'm learning Hebrew, that I'm trying to write. And you know, there was a moment when I felt that I should write, but I could not write. And then something happened to me. One day, I began to copy chapters of the Bible. Every day, I copied a chapter of the Bible. I could not understand all the words in the Bible, but a stream of warmness came from those old words from the Bible. I'm not coming from a religious home. Actually, I'm coming from a very secular home. My uncles were communists. My father was a liberal, my mother. But I felt that in the Bible, you know, the spareness of the sentences, the shortness, the concentrations, that has something, a secret meaning. So I used to do it for a year, maybe even more, to copy every day a chapter of the Bible with all the dots. I still have the papers with me. And then happened another thing happened to me. I was in a kibbutz, and we are walking in the fields. And I came home, in the evening I came home, and we had our meals, and then I was alone, and I made a list of my family. My mother, her name was Bunya. My father's name was Michael. I was born in the town of Chernowitz. I was living in this Masaryk street. So, and I mentioned all my grandfather was Meir. So I made a list of my family. And I put it down in Hebrew. The first time I have seen my family in Hebrew letters. And if before I was actually an orphan. No relatives here in this country. Not to speak, no friends, no cousins. Suddenly I realized I have a family. I'm surrounded. I have a town. I have a street. I can name them. So it was my first writing. I was 18 years old before being mobilized in the army. It was for me the first meeting or trying to combine my family with Hebrew letters. It was childish, if you wish, but it was very meaningful to me, and it gave me a start. This was the start, It's very interesting. How was your start in the Romanian language?
Yeah, my start is quite different, as my life is, in fact, very different. I was born in a Jewish family where my parents spoke Romanian. My grandparents were religious Jews. I would say very religious. So I'm sure that when I was born, my grandfather probably asked about me in Yiddish. I learned Romanian, and when I was deported, I was 5 years old, 5 years and a half, with my parents and with, as you know, the entire Jewish population of Bukovina. The Romanian language was also exiled with me. In the camps, I learned Yiddish from my grandparents, other Jews around me, and some Russian from the children with whom I sometimes played. We came back to Romania in 1945. And from 1944, or even the end of 1943, I was in a Russian school. I was even a Soviet pioneer, and I learned Russian. When I came back to Romania, Russian became in a year or two obligatory in school, even in the elementary school. Fortunately or unfortunately, I knew better Russian than my teacher, so I didn't learn it, and I almost forgot it. But a year after we came back, my parents hired a teacher of German language. So despite what happened to us, and despite that they were not very cultivated people, they had very good common sense. They knew that in Bukovina, the language of the Jews was mainly German. So I learned German for only 1 year. And when I was 12 or 11 and a half, I was already very fierce communist. At that age, it's not a sin. I learned Hebrew for my bar mitzvah. I had a good teacher, and for better or for worse, I was a good student. So I still remember some things, especially when I come back to Israel. Words come back, and I can read it when it is with these points. When it's without them, I have to guess. Sometimes I succeed, sometimes I don't. In the high school, I learned French. So I wandered to many languages. But my inner language, as I said, and my essential language is Romanian. My first shocking encounter with the Romanian language was at the age of 9. I was just returning from the camps. My Romanian was handicapped, as I was. And my parents, for my birthday, bought me a book with Romanian fairy tales. At that time, this was my Bible. I fell in love with these fairy tales, with the language, and the disease, as you see, stayed with me. Is this to be a Jew or is it not? So I will maybe speculate a bit about this. As you probably know, Freud asked in a preface to his Hebrew edition of his most important book, he posed this question: what remains from a Jew who is not religious, is not nationalist, and doesn't know the language of the Bible? And he said, a lot. He was careful enough not to explain what, because it's difficult to explain this. What he made from me as a Jew is, first of all, I was at 5 years old defined as a Jew in the camps and to the camps. Some years ago, I was invited to the Israeli ambassador in Berlin. It was a dinner in honor of Yemei Kertesh. And they asked him to say something about his Jewishness. You know that his Jewishness is very ambiguous, let's say so. And he said, I am a Jew because I was sent to Auschwitz as a Jew. And that's all. It's not exactly my case, because I grew up in a Jewish family with a Jewish tradition, as I spoke about my parents on my mother's side and my parents on my father's side. They were religious people. And my mother was a religious woman. My father was a traditional Jew who respected very much the tradition. So I am a Jew, and Romania had the good idea to make me more and more one. I remember, and I told this story several times, that in the 60s, you see what a Romanian does. So, in the early 60s, in Israel appeared an anthology which was called Jewish Writers of Romanian Language. I was included in this anthology, and I was very happy when I saw it, a very elegant book. And it was my first text translated in a foreign language, into a foreign language. But I was extremely irritated by the title. And I was irritated because at that time, and I don't know exactly what it is, how it is today, I considered myself a Romanian writer, period. And my ethnicity, I thought, is my problem. I was already very tired to deal in Romania and not only with this ethnicity. So I am a Romanian writer. If you ask me if I'm a Jew, I will always say I am. If you recognize in my writing a Jewish sensitivity or a Jewish kind of topic, it's fine. But don't put the finger on this issue. Time passed. I had to leave. I had also to confront a certain trend and a certain very unpleasant trend in the Romanian culture. So I kept asking myself if I was right or not. Also coming to America, I discovered that writers now are not necessarily defined by language, but by other criteria. Feminist writer, homosexual writer, Catholic writer, black writer. So why not Jewish writer, if we go on this path? I still think, and you confirmed, and I didn't have any doubt about this, that the writer is rooted in his language. So whoever is pleased or unpleased with me being a Romanian writer, this was my destiny, and I tried to do my best about it. And I think in my books, from the start, it is quite visible who I am. Even I didn't put in all the sentences this word, and in fact I put it quite rarely. Am I a Jew? In what way? I am from a Jewish mother, so you probably accept that I am a Jew. I was circumcised, so I am a Jew. I'm not religious, I'm perhaps probably agnostic, but I still believe in a mystery, or in a mystical mystery which I cannot define. And I go back to a definition in the Talmud which defines the Jew as somebody who rejects idolatry. I do reject idolatry. And I always did, but not in all my ages. When I was 11, my idol was Jabotinsky. When I was 13, my idol was Stalin. And in 49, when I had Bar Mitzvah, it was the year, probably you don't know or don't remember, when Stalin aged. It was his birthday for the 70th anniversary, still younger than I am today. I wrote a poem for him, and I even sang this poem. I'm not very ashamed of this. Poems were sung at that time by very great poets, Eluard and Aragon and Neruda and many others, who are quite older than I was at 13. So I think I can be forgiven for this short period of idolatry. And happily or not, I caught very soon after the disease which unifies us, which is literature, and I couldn't get rid of it. So this is, let's say, my brief answer. Can go on if you want.
Norman, it was a brief answer, but it was very essential. It was very essential because it's very interesting when I meet you, and I have met you several times. We never spoke about this. Are we Jewish? Are we not Jewish? Are we Jewish writers? Are we not Jewish writers? I think actually this is not the problem, You are what you are. You are Norma, and I'm Aharon. In Jewishness, you cannot speak about Jewishness as something alien. It's actually one of our limbs of memory. It's an organism.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I had some 4 years ago this discussion in
not a discussion.
Not with you. With you I had it in Paris. I had this discussion with Cynthia Ozick at a Jewish center in New York, and we were asked both how we consider itself. And Cynthia, whom probably you know, is a quintessential Jewish writer from all points of view, although she doesn't write in Hebrew. And she said that she is what she is, but she got tired to be the spokesperson for a community. And then I was asked, and I said what I said here, that I became more and more a Jewish writer, and she who knew me and knew how I think was extremely shocked, and she said, look, we came here and suddenly each of us changed his position. I started to say, yes, I am, but I don't know how much I am. And you started to say, I didn't know how much I am, but now I am. So, a typical Jewish kind of game, as we know.
It's very interesting, here we have this kind of debate in Israel, more and more Jewish, Israeli, more Jewish, less Jewish. We have it here all the time. It's tiring, of course, such debates are tiring because they are always somewhere on the surface and not in depth, because in depth there are other things. So it's always, thank God, I speak also in your name, that we are writers, So the words are nourishing us every day. They give us wonderful food, And I mean that through the words, with the words, this is our way we express ourselves, and not in, abstract concepts, but in real, because a good word, transmits something of your inner life.
Yeah, and as I know, the Bible didn't succeed to protect you from a lot of criticism here, that you didn't write about the new man, about the new Israeli man, about the great happy Zionist and so on, because you stayed with your inner subject, which made your work as wonderful as it is, and nobody can accuse you that you don't have the topic which the people want. They can accuse you that you wrote a bad sentence.
Yes.
This, yes, I agree.
Yes.
But the topic doesn't matter, you can write about a door.
Yes.
And if it is a good page, it's still wonderful.
Wonderful. We should stop to a good page. It's very interesting, you know, at the beginning, when I began to write and publish my first books, I was not accused actually. People said, you know, good wishing people say to me, Aharon, we love you. Why should you not write more about Israel? I'm sure you know that. These are good wishing people that told it to me. But thank God that I'm still, I'm quite old, and that I'm still with my parents, with my grandparents, still walking in the streets where I used to walk as a child. And still, even through the Hebrew words, still listening to the melody of my mother reading it before going to sleep, some fairy tales you mentioned. I think it's, you know, I should stop, you know, to me. Here you go. So I just want, you know, I'm an obedient person, so I want to thank you for being here with me for a short